First individual, Mr. Speaker, is John Zazerny. John was a former member of this Assembly, first elected in 1979 and re-elected in 82, and a former Minister of Energy. The other individual is Mr. Art Smith. Mr. Smith is one of Alberta's most distinguished citizens. He is a former Calgary Alderman, former member of this Assembly, and a former member of Parliament, and one of the prime forces behind the Calgary Olympic movement. Along with him, Mr. Speaker, is Mr. Bart Rombaugh. Mr. Rombaugh is chairman of the Canadian Petroleum Association. I should say that the three gentlemen are here today, Mr. Speaker. They are attending the Alberta Oil Sands Technology and Research Authority Oil Sands 2000 convention, and I would ask that they rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of this Assembly.
Sharon, please. Member for Drumheller, followed by Calgary-Glenmore. Oh, Calgary-Glenmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly a former member of the Legislative Assembly, a former Energy Minister, a constituent of Calgary-Glenmore, and my friend who is sitting in the public gallery, Mr. Bill Dickey.
Member for Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you and members of the Assembly 16 students from the Alberta Vocational Centre. They're secretarial students, Mr. Speaker, together with their teacher, Ms. Kinley. They're in both galleries. I'd ask that they please now rise and receive the warm welcome of the members of the Assembly.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure today to introduce to you and to all members of the Assembly a grade 10 student from Émile-Lazerte High School who is involved in the Academic Challenge Program at that high school. Mr. Speaker, while most students are on their reading week, he's involved in the mentorship program and is spending his reading week at the legislature. I'd ask Bernie Soto to rise. He's in the public gallery and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Member for Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to the members of the legislature some 31 students from the school in my constituency, St. Vincent de Paul. They're grade 6 students. They're attended here by their teacher, Pat McMillan, and two parents, Mrs. Dyer and Mrs. Gauthier, and also their bus driver, Heinz Kluth. I'd ask them to rise. They're seated in the public gallery, and I'd ask the members to give them the traditional warm welcome.
Member for Red Deer North.
Mr. Speaker, it's a real joy for me to join with the Honourable John Oldring, MLA for Red Deer South, in welcoming 35 wonderful individuals from Red Deer. They are members and senior citizens of Downtown House in Red Deer, here with us today, and we'd ask them to stand and receive the warm applause of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Environment. Mr. Speaker, this government has been going around the province bragging about its newfound commitment to the environment at almost every opportunity. Remind you, it's the same government that wanted to build dams over the province and build pulp mills without EIAs, Mr. Speaker. But we heard about the environment in every other sentence of the speech from the throne, and we even got more environment rhetoric in expensive newspaper ads. But, Mr. Speaker, let's take a look at the fine print of the budget documents, and we see that the so-called 10% increase in expenditures on the environment is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. If you take away, Mr. Speaker, the $12 million increase in funding for the Swan Hills Waste Treatment Facility, the environment budget hasn't gone up at all, Mr. Speaker. And I ask the minister, how can this minister talk about increased action on the environment when every penny of the budget increase is eaten up by the money-losing Swan Hills facility?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't have to just talk about the environment. I think that the action that this government has taken relative to the environment more than speaks for itself.
Oh, yeah?
Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't answer the question either with the record that they have in the environment, Mr. Speaker. Just because you talk doesn't make it come about, Mr. Minister. Now, my question is, if you compare the budget, the government funding for Swan Hills is going up 48%. Compare that to a measly 1.5% increase in the budget for recycling, Mr. Speaker. And I asked that minister, can he explain why this government is spending 30 times more on waste disposal than it spends on recycling and reducing waste in the first place?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the honorable leader of the opposition isn't aware, maybe I can make him aware of the Swan Hills facility. It is the only facility of its kind in Canada, Mr. Speaker. We are the only province in this country, Mr. Speaker, that has the capability of looking after hazardous waste. Now, if the honorable member of the opposition doesn't think that cleaning up contaminated ground, cleaning up dangerous substances is not important, then his values are a lot different than mine.
I think we're talking about cleaning up white elephants, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, look at the Swan Hills plant that he's talking about. We've complained that it should have been a Crown Corporation to begin with, Mr. Speaker, because either they were going to cut costs or they would come back to the taxpayer for more money. We're having it both ways, Mr. Speaker. And I want to ask the minister, who just bragged about this facility, how much of this $12 million for Swan Hills is going to pay Chem Security Limited its guaranteed rate of return?
Mr. Speaker, this will come out quite appropriately in the estimates. The simple fact is, Mr. Speaker, is that we have a facility in this province that doesn't exist anywhere else in the country. It was a facility that to me represented foresight and courage and commitment on the part of this government. It represents foresight, commitment, and courage on behalf of the citizens of Swan Hill who overcame the not-in-my-backyard syndrome to allow an establishment, a world-class establishment, to be built in that particular community. Mr. Speaker, the estimates will come out during debate during the Public Accounts Committee, and I think that I'd be willing to explain and defend to the nth degree the Swan Hills facility at that time.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Here comes, Mr. Speaker, but I think the minister better learn the rules, Mr. Speaker. But the point that I asked about this committee, and I want to stay with the Minister of the Environment to talk about some other creative accounting, most of that money going from the environment is going into Chem Security's pocket. That's what the reality is.
That's right.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I noticed also to the same minister that on page 22 of the budget address, we have a nice little graph here, Mr. Speaker, that says that Alberta is leading the way. The graph, again, in environmental expenditures in 1989-90. If you look at the graph, it looks like we're spending almost $110 per capita, Mr. Speaker. Now, we found this very interesting. I want to ask the minister first a question. Does the Minister of Environment still stand behind these figures, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I stand behind a budget that has put in place that will allow this government and this ministry to protect and use wisely the environment now and into the future.
Cook the books.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister is being very cautious here. I would be, too, if I had the treasurer putting out the budget that he did, Mr. Speaker. But if you look at this, Mr. Speaker, if this figure is multiplied by the Alberta 1989 population of 2.43 million, the government would have had to spend, Mr. Speaker, $267 million on the environment in 1989-90. The actual forecast in the budget address, Mr. Speaker, is just under $124 million, or about $50 per capita, Mr. Speaker. What is the minister's explanation for this gross discrepancy?
It's all in the eyes of the beholder, Mr. Speaker. And very simply, I can say that Alberta has one of the highest expenditures for environmental protection and enhancement of any province in this country.
Mr. Speaker, obviously, the minister isn't going to stand behind those figures.
Right.
And it's what we've been saying. This government does nothing but cook the books, Mr. Speaker,
Here, here.
to the deputy premier. When is this government going to start telling the truth to Albertans, Mr. Speaker?
We do tell the truth, but there are none so deaf as those who will not hear, and that includes the leader of the opposition. Kevin to Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Minister of Environment. After the ALPAC hearings, the Minister of Environment said that an additional scientific review was not a backdoor through which the government could override the ALPAC review panel process. He also said that it would be impossible to ignore some 8,000 pages of evidence, and finally said that the review was the most comprehensive in Canadian history. The Minister of Health, after the review panel's conclusion, said, certainly that decision can't be overridden. Yet the Premier has begun the process of discrediting the ALPAC process, based on, I believe, a simple assumption that those who speak more or come forward, if there are more who speak against than those who come forward and speak for an issue, there must be something out of whack, there must be something wrong. My first question to the Minister, Mr. Speaker, is this. Inasmuch as the ALPAC's lawyers' closing comments before the review panel, and I quote, said, "I think your recommendation, whatever it is, will have the greatest credibility because of the way you have carried out these hearings." Based on those statements, those clear statements, Mr. Minister, Mr. Speaker, how can the government backtrack? How can the minister or the government backtrack from the position that the review panel has taken?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is no backtracking whatsoever. As a matter of fact, we are in the process now as a department and as a government of assessing the recommendations contained in the ALPAC report. We're trying to select an independent consulting firm to examine the scientific evidence that was presented. Mr. Speaker, we take very, very seriously the recommendations contained in the ALPAC review panel's report, and we will do what is absolutely necessary to implement those recommendations that are reasonable. We will carry out a very thorough and diligent review of those recommendations and put into place those recommendations that are deemed to be proper. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, we're already in the process of putting in one of the recommendations from the ALPAC report, and that is a recommendation to formalize the environmental impact assessment review process. And if the honorable leader of the Liberal Party had been listening to the throne speech, he would have heard Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, announce that we are going to establish a Natural Resources Conservation Board to study and...
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Let's save something for the supplementary.
Speaker, the question is simple. Is the minister prepared to live to the recommendations that were set out by the ALPAC review panel process? Are you prepared to do that?
Mr. Speaker, obviously the honorable leader of the Liberal Party wasn't listening. He wasn't listening because I said what we're going to do is undertake a diligent, thorough, honest review of the recommendations and put in, after that review, put in those recommendations that are deemed to be proper and reasonable. Now maybe he understands.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the government has started to weasel on this matter and has started to backtrack. The matter of the review panel was a joint process of the federal and provincial government, our provincial government. My question to the minister, Mr. Speaker, is this. Does the federal government, do their officials hold the same kind of views of this review process that now our government appears to hold?
Mr. Speaker, according to According to the Honorable Mr. Bouchard, the Federal Minister of the Environment, they are doing precisely what the province of Alberta has committed to do. And if the Honorable Leader of the Liberal Party would listen, once again, the federal government, like the provincial government, is carrying out an honest, diligent, thorough review of the recommendations.
Drumheller, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Deputy Premier. Can the Deputy Premier advise the Assembly of the composition of the task force on the Meech Lake Accord agreed to by the Western Premiers and when it will commence its work?
Mr. Speaker, the task force has been established, as has been noted in the news conference by the Western Premiers and meeting in Vancouver. The meetings will take place here in Edmonton tomorrow, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The representatives from Alberta will be the new Deputy Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs, Aricia Lenny, and Dr. Peter Meekison, the Vice President of the University of Alberta, former Deputy Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs. They will be joined by representatives from the other 4 Western provinces, all the most senior officials in Intergovernmental Affairs and Attorney General's departments from the various, the other 3 provinces, all at the Deputy Minister level and with the other senior officials. As I say, those meetings will commence here in Edmonton tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A supplementary question. Would the Deputy Premier advise the Assembly as to the terms of reference of this task force, what it's supposed to do for us?
Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that the NDP isn't particularly interested in knowing very much about the task force or the role it wants to undertake from the sounds and the chatter that is coming from across the way. And that's regrettable because Meech Lake, the future of the Constitution of this country, should concern every member of this Assembly and every Canadian. Mr. Speaker, the terms of reference are to examine all the proposals which are now being advanced by all the provinces, by the federal government. Most recent initiative of the Prime Minister, who today tabled in the House of Commons the proposal from New Brunswick for consideration and debate and public hearings through a special committee of the House of Commons. That will be reviewed, and the task force will be advising the 4 Western Premiers, and very significantly for all members to keep in mind the fact that Manitoba has joined the other provinces in this joint endeavor to make sure that Canada and our future is not imperiled by a constitutional impasse. I hope that the members of this Assembly will treat it as a serious matter. It is.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On March 2nd, close to a month ago, when the government announced its position on the ALPAC Review Board report, there was a clear statement that the ALPAC project could not proceed until further studies could verify its environmental safety. The clunker was this review board the further review board of scientists we're talking about today. The only specific matter referred to by the Premier in relation to this is the matter of some people he met with who were upset because their strong support for the project was not reflected in the report. In so doing, the Premier's made it clear that his concern is a political one, not a scientific one at all. And I would like, therefore, there's a long shadow cast on the government's view towards this report. I would like the Minister of the Environment to state clearly today, here it is, has the government agreed to complete the studies on fish habitat, water quality, and timber harvesting referred to page 90 and 91 of the report before any pulp project is licensed on the Athabasca River?
Obviously, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place wasn't listening to the answer I provided to the honourable member of the Liberal Party, the leader of the Liberal Party, and that is simply that we will carry out, in accordance with the ALPAC recommendations, the diligent, proper, review of the recommendations and put in place what is deemed to be proper at that particular time?
No. A month ago, the Minister and the Premier said they endorsed a specific recommendation. Yesterday, the Premier said when he gets together with the boys in his office to divvy up the province, he doesn't have to invite the Minister because, I quote, "I'm perfectly capable of representing Mr. Klein. He works for me." End of quote. So I want the Minister today to stake his reputation on whether he'll give assurances to this House on the studies, specifically on fish habitat, water quality, timber harvesting, referred to almost a month ago. Will he stake his reputation that those will be done scientifically before any pulp mills are built on the Athabasca River?
Mr. Speaker, it has been said in this House many times before that any future pulp mill projects will be subjected to an environmental impact assessment process. All the studies referred to by the honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place, I'm sure would become part of that environmental impact assessment process. Surely he should know that. Surely he should know that, Mr. Speaker. And that's precisely the kind of process we plan to follow. Obviously, the honourable member wasn't listening, Mr. Speaker, when I said that we're in the process now of formalizing and creating a level playing field for environmental impact assessment processes in the future, and it's called the Natural Resources Conservation Board. And in the future, hopefully this board will be able to undertake reviews taking into account all the scientific evidence mentioned by the honourable member in an assessment of a particular project.
Edmonton Mill Woods, followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety. Over the last year, we've had an explosion of accidents at unsafe work sites in this province, ranging from gassings at Weldwood to death at Daishawa, poisonings at Alberta Recoveries and Rentals and Medicine Hat, and those are only the worst examples. So I want to ask this Minister, can he tell us why, in light of that appalling situation, there's no increase in this budget for additional staff in the Occupational Health and Safety Department? Why is that? Because you have no influence in the Cabinet, or what?
Mr. Speaker, we have sufficient people in our staff to do the inspections throughout the province, and I would take this question at committee stage when we do our budget and answer it fully.
Mr. Speaker, if this minister can't or won't get any resources for his department, will he today make a commitment in the House to amend the Occupational Health and Safety Act to provide for mandatory joint worksite health and safety committees across this province to try to do something about the falling rate of accidents we're facing?
Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to note that the only thing the NDP think of is police, police, police. Yeah. Force people to do all kinds of things. Mr. Speaker, we have over 1,000 joint worksite committees in place in Alberta working very well, and all of them are voluntarily. And that's the way we want to see them go, is to continue with a volunteer system and not police everybody to the extent that they suggest.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, between July and August of 1988, Procter & Gamble was permitted to exceed effluent limits over 30 times. Under the Clean Water Act, the Department of Environment is required to authorize such discharges by one of two formal legal mechanisms, a control order or a certificate of variance. In this case, neither were issued. To the Minister of the Environment, will he please explain why his department would not follow its own formal legislative procedures in authorizing Procter & Gamble's discharges over limits?
Well, Mr. Speaker, obviously the honourable member didn't listen. nor did he research he answered. Or else, had he researched answer, he wouldn't be asking the question that he's asking today. Because I responded to the honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place some time ago that I was going to undertake a full and complete investigation of this particular matter, and when that investigation is complete, Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to share the results of that investigation with members of this Legislative Assembly.
Well, we've already investigated it, and his department and Procter & Gamble confirmed that particular fact. Is it not the case, and perhaps he could check this, is it not the case, and perhaps he could check this in his investigation, that by failing to issue these two approvals, the department did not have to issue the press release, which as a matter of standard practice accompanies these approvals, thereby avoiding the awkward publicity that would have arisen 4 months before the announcement of the Alberta Pacific Pulp Mill project?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I knew that the Liberal caucus had within its midst a bevy of lawyers. I didn't know they also had a bevy of scientists.
Clover Bar, followed by Edmonton Centre.
Clover Bar, followed by Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The newscast yesterday, TV newscast yesterday, alleged that provincial funding may be reduced for the Whitemud and Calgary Trail interchange. It also alleged, Mr. Speaker, that some of the priorities, the provincial priorities, were somewhat different than the City of Edmonton priorities. In response to a question in the last session of this legislature, the minister responded that alleviation of the safety concerns at the 23rd Avenue and Highway 14 intersection could be achieved through the eastward extension of the Whitemud Freeway. That extension, Mr. Speaker, is very critical and important to the constituents in Clover Bar. Would the Minister of Transportation and Utilities indicate if there have been cuts in grant funding to the City of Edmonton that may preclude or delay the construction of this extension?
Mr. Speaker, no cuts have been provided either by way of the City of Edmonton or any of the cities involved in the urban transportation program. It's $65 per capita. It's $5 per capita for the Safe Streets program, and then we have the maintenance program, the senior citizens program. I've got to get the other ones here for you. Public transit operating, primary highway maintenance, a primary highway connector, and of course the basic capital grant program. And in relation to that particular story, and it was interesting, I spent about 3 minutes with the CBC yesterday doing an interview, and they used the one word that we had at the end, and it was garbage. Properly right for the question that was asked at the time, but it didn't give the lead into it. So I may just do that right now. The city has suggested to us that they would like some more money for that particular interchange, the Calgary-Whitemud interchange. They can use all of the basic capital grant if they so choose it, and this year it'll come to $37 million, almost $38 million. And I might add that no dollars, no special funding has been provided for the Whitemud from start to finish over the last 10 years, regardless of who was the MLA, who was the Premier, who was the Minister, or what. It has all been done by the basic capital grant program and will continue to be.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. There were some indications given in answers to question last session about the timing of that extension. Could I now ask the Minister, what is the timing for completion of the extension of Whitemud Drive to Highway 14?
The best answer I can give you, to the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, is that that decision will be the City of Edmonton's up and to the edge of the boundary. And my understanding is, and I might say they're also working on the Calgary-Whitemud interchange right now, on approval that was given by us through the Basic Capital Grant Program. But my understanding is they'll be doing some of the design work on that, and it is probably due to go into construction about 1994, at the present suggestion from the City of Edmonton.
Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government continues to want to increase flat, regressive health taxes on Albertans in just about every devious way they can get away with under the Canada Health Act. And now we have the hypocrisy of the Treasurer saying Thursday night, in fact, that they were going to be kind of benevolent to seniors and exempt them from paying this over $400 a year in Medicare taxes. But then yesterday, the Minister of Health pulled a a full $730 out of the pockets of seniors who are resident in nursing homes and auxiliary hospitals in the province. And I want to ask the Minister of Health if she can set the record straight and tell Albertans that, in fact, seniors have paid their fair share of taxes to this province, and that she's prepared now to rescind this regressive tax, pulling $2 million out of the pockets of the frail elderly in the province.
Here, here. No, Mr. Speaker, I'm not prepared to rescind something that's been committed to in our budget, and I think it's very important to put the long-term care accommodation rates in the context of what we are improving in the level of $24 million additional dollars to long-term care in our province. Alberta, primarily seniors who are in long-term care, will remain by far those with the highest disposable income in Canada. And we have income support programs for those who aren't seniors. We have, as I said yesterday, ensured that the program is affordable, that we are charging a reasonable rate of $16 a day for room and board in long-term care facilities. And certainly I believe it's an appropriate charge and certainly well below those charged in other provinces of Canada.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans have just had enough of a government that puts money into the pockets of Pocklington and GSR and takes money out of the pockets of the elderly in nursing homes in this province. It's time for a change to this. So the Minister of Health, who claims to care so much about seniors and their care in this province, will she commit to come with me, for instance, to the Glamorgan nursing home in Calgary and to talk there to the residents and staff and to hear firsthand how they feel about their care and how they feel about $730 being pulled out of their pockets?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would, I have been around this province a great deal and talked to many people who are not only senior citizens, but the 2.2 million Albertans who are very proud of the health care system that exists in this province. And certainly part of the Premier's Commission that was called by our Premier to look at health needs of Albertans, looked at our health system from its broadest spectrum base, as opposed to isolating projects out of that health care system. I believe all Albertans are proud of our system, and certainly I have talked to a lot of senior citizens, but I've also talked to people in our mental health clinics, I've talked to people in active care, and to isolate one part of our health system at the expense of another is not, I think, what Albertans want us to do as their government.
Agreed. Edmonton Whitemud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have confirmed that the City of Edmonton's Transportation Department's highest priority under the primary highway program is the completion of the Whitemud Drive improvements at Calgary Trail to relieve the increasing bottleneck, the worst bottleneck in this city. Mr. Speaker, despite 2 written requests by city officials, a preference stated by City Council, the Provincial Department of Transportation has insisted on funding the Yellowhead Outer Ring Road interchange instead of the Whitemud Calgary Trail project under the primary highways program, which would see this bottleneck eliminated in 2 years instead of 5. My question, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Transportation and Utilities, why is the Minister not prepared to allow the City of Edmonton to determine its own transportation priorities?
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to suggest that a couple sitting over on that particular side had the opportunity when they were alderman and mayor to start that particular one. And yes, 3 of them. Wink and... Oh, I like that. There is no way. Wink and blink and a nod. Didn't mean to wake you up. You must be having some gas pains right now. Mr. Speaker, there is no way that this government is interfering with the decision-making of the City of Edmonton relative to their road priorities within the city boundaries. They have, as I repeated just a moment ago and will be receiving very shortly, $37,951,680 for the basic capital grant. They can use it all for the Calgary interchange if they so choose, or they can use it as they have suggested to do their LRT and then see what maybe they can get from other programs that may be available. Community safe streets, 2.9 million. Primary highway maintenance, it's not in your part of it, but 1.9 million. 1.19 million. Public transit operating, 6.4 million. But the city of Edmonton makes the decision on anything that is not ring road or continuous corridor. And if they happen to be ring road or continuous corridor, Mr. Speaker, they can apply for additional dollars under the programs that we have. If it is not, then they must make the decision to use the basic capital grant. And they have. We have approved it. They are working out there right now.
Mr. Speaker, I made it very clear I was talking the primary highways program. The preference was given to the yellowhead over the white mud. Does the minister, Mr. Speaker, determine his transportation budget by the way ridings vote?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Wainwright, followed by Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture, and it's concerning the serious farm income situation, and in particular the ongoing drought problem in Saskatchewan and southeastern Alberta. There have been statements by the federal government that they have set money aside over and above crop insurance to help the seriously affected areas in Western Canada. This would only be available through a joint program with the provinces. Has the minister had any discussion with other provinces or the federal government regarding a workable joint program?
Mr. Speaker, I would prefer to answer this one as opposed to my ag critic from Vegreville. I can assure the honourable member for Wainwright that I have been in discussions with the Honourable Don Mazinkowski. He has assured me that there will be no program that is province-specific. In other words, if there is any response, it will be to all the farmers across Western Canada that have suffered from the same circumstances. The Honourable Shirley McClellan and I had meetings yesterday in Regina with the Premier Grant Devine, the Minister of Agriculture from that province, his Associate Minister Harold Martins, and the Minister of Agriculture Glenn Finlay from Manitoba. We did reach a consensus that there were 3 areas that the federal government, and I stress the federal government, should be responding to the agricultural community in. One, the trade wars, particularly the battles between the Treasury of the USA and the European Common Community that have kept grain prices depressed, we feel is an area that should be responded to at the federal level. Number 2, the high interest rate policy in this country, which is leading to an artificially high dollar and hence is costing the agricultural provinces that are in exporting position in a double whammy, first of all on the cost of their money, and secondly the reduced return on their product, we feel is a federal policy and should be addressed by the federal government. Thirdly, we agreed that the drought problem is caused by a shortfall in the crop insurance program and hence should be responded to. We will be meeting with the federal minister and other provincial ministers in Ottawa later on this week, and we will be presenting that case to them.
Thank you. Given that Alberta's drought area is relatively small compared to the total area, can the minister assure us that we will equal other provinces' participation in the cost sharing?
I think it would be fair to say, Mr. Speaker, that if a program is developed, Alberta producers will participate in it to their relative degree of hurt.
Edmonton Highlands, followed by Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, by way of statute, Edmonton Northlands is entitled to an annual grant out of lottery funds generated in Alberta, which this year comes to $5 million. That's on top of the approximately $1.6 million that Northlands gets from other provincial government departments. Now, for the last few years, Mr. Speaker, Northlands has been buying up properties in the communities adjacent to the Northlands property, and now they propose to mow down those houses, needed housing stock, in order to put up a parking lot. So I'd like to ask the minister responsible for lotteries if he's prepared to intervene and tell Northlands that if they don't decide to put up a second tier on their own parking lot, for which they already charge money, that he's going to cut the lottery funding off to them and not allow them to destroy needed housing.
That's a poser. Mr. Speaker, the Northlands Board in Edmonton, as the Calgary Stampede Board in Calgary, made up of volunteers that function within those communities, and they have representatives appointed by the both municipal levels of government. And it is correct that on an annual basis, both of these exhibition associations have been receiving substantial amount of funding annually from the province of Alberta. But it's also not so, Mr. Speaker, that the dollars that have been received by Edmonton Northlands in this case is geared or dedicated to a specific purpose. Those decisions that are made by Edmonton Northlands, in much the same way that they're made by the Calgary Stampede Board in Calgary, are made with essentially for debt retirement on commitments already made, rather than the utilization of these funds for newly acquired or newly initiated projects. So it would seem to me, Mr. Speaker, that the appropriate mechanism is first of all clarification for the member in terms of what is the reality of where today, and I'm sure that Edmonton Northlands would be very, very pleased to sit down and talk to the member from Edmonton Highlands about exactly what it is that they are doing.
Well, Mr. Speaker, their present plan is to destroy 2 communities to put up a parking lot. And if the Minister for Lotteries won't do anything about it, perhaps the Minister responsible for housing will speak up for that important portfolio. He knows the housing shortage that people in Edmonton are facing. Will he lobby the Minister to cut off the funds to Northlands if they proceed to use those funds to put up a parking lot in place of existing housing?
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable House Leader for the New Democratic Party is asking me to bring the strong arm of the law into this case. And what I've learned in politics over the years is that socialists often parade around with a lot of compassion at heart, but you give them power and they want to cut your throat. And I would have to say that this matter is a matter of local concern, and there are a group of responsible people in this city that have been given the authority to negotiate and consider the matter, and I think we should trust in that kind of local consideration.
Edmonton Gold Bar, followed by Calgary Bowl.
Mr. Speaker, the Department of Family and Social Services has just been served with another glaring piece of evidence proving the system of child welfare in our province is not working adequately. Since 1984, Mr. Speaker, this government has been forced to initiate several inquiries following tragic suicides of Native youths placed in the care of the Minister of Family and Social Services. Judge White, Dr. Tomlinson, Judge Porter all called for serious changes to the child welfare system, recommendations which we find now repeated in the Ombudsman's report. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Family and Social Services. All these reports have stressed the need for mandatory Native culture awareness training for workers, as well as those stressed in the department's own manual. Our estimate is that 2,100 social workers, psychologists, and child welfare councils need and should have this training. Can the minister now tell the House, have these workers been given this training, and how many of them have passed the course?
Mr. Speaker, the member makes reference to a number of reports that this government has received over the years, and I'd want to say that I've appreciated the input of Mr. Tomlinson and Mr. Porter, and that this government has acted very swiftly in responding to the recommendations in those reports, and have taken that advice very seriously. And I think, Mr. Speaker, it's fair to say that it has led to substantive improvements in the way we deliver services to children in need here in this province.
Mr. Speaker, that certainly is not the impression out in the public as to the response from the department. Mr. Speaker, my second question to the minister then is, will the minister undertake right now to make a response in this House to the Ombudsman's recommendations, as well as those of Judge Porter, Judge White, and Dr. Tomlinson?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've already in part addressed the the response to the Tomlinson report and the Porter report. As it relates to the Ombudsman's report, Mr. Speaker, again, I would want to say that I really appreciate the time and effort that the Ombudsman put into bringing forward 15 recommendations to my department. I received those, as you know, Mr. Speaker, I received those recently. They were announced yesterday. I would want to assure the House that I intend to act swiftly on those recommendations. There are excellent recommendations there, and I look forward. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I should point out that in part some of these recommendations are somewhat dated. I think the member knows that this is a result of occurrences that date back to 1988, and as I had a chance to have a quick look at those recommendations, my initial observations are that we indeed as a department have already taken steps to address the majority of the recommendations that are there. But Mr. Speaker, I intend to go through those recommendations carefully and very closely, and as I say, we will be acting very swiftly on these recommendations.
Calgary Bowl.
Question is for the Honourable Ken Kowalski, Minister responsible for lotteries. Mr. Minister, some Calgary community groups, including one in Calgary Bow, which is my own constituency, have used the Community Facility Enhancement Program grants as matching funds in their applications for the CRC grants, which are administered by the City of Calgary. They were informed last Friday that they'll not be able to use these CFEP dollars as the matching portion for the application. It is their understanding that this has been allowed in the past. Would the Minister please tell this Assembly if there has been a change in the policy governing these grants?
Mr. Speaker, I'll accept the question as the Acting Minister of Recreation and Parks. As long ago as 1988, the then Minister of Recreation and Parks clearly stated, in terms with respect to guidelines for the CRC program, or the Community Recreation Cultural Program, that matching funds derived from one government-initiated program could not be matched by funds derived from another government-initiated program to match one another to complete a program. That was the policy that was introduced with respect to the Community Facility Enhancement Program in the fall of 1988 and has been in place since that time. It appears, however, that during the summer of 1989, in at least one part of this province of Alberta, there's been some confusion that may have come out of administrative sectors in the Department of Recreation and Parks that suggested that, in fact, you could use funds derived from one government-initiated program to match funds received from another government-initiated program, and such is not the case. And in recent weeks, correspondence emanated out of the Department of Recreation and Parks to clarify that. This matter, it appears, Mr. Speaker, has only been existing in one part of Calgary for a number of months.
Okay. Could the Minister please tell this Assembly then if there's any course of action that these groups could follow so that these very important community projects are not lost?
It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that in the case of the groups in Calgary that have made application to the City of Calgary for CRC funding, and these are funds, of course, provided by the province of Alberta, the amount of dollars that are in place are very substantial in each and all cases. It seemed to me, Mr. Speaker, that if there has been confusion, and we are dealing with volunteers, that the most appropriate action would be for, in fact, these groups to deal with their MLAs and to see if an innovative solution can be found to deal with the particular concerns before them all. The last thing in the world we want to do is discourage volunteers who work very hard and frustrate volunteers.
Time for question period has expired. Might we have unanimous consent to allow the Solicitor General to make reply for information submitted yesterday? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the House. To the question period yesterday, the honourable member from Calgary Milligan and Edmonton Whitemud raised the fact that the estimates indicated the impaired driving program initiatives had been reduced by $280,000. And in my general glee and joy to be able to talk about it, I transposed some figures and indicated that that would result in a $280,000 enhancement and improvement on programs. However, the amount of money that was taken out of the capital side of the impaired driving programs was in fact $500,000, which leaves a net amount of $220,000 to improve those programs. And I think this is indicative of this government's seriousness in continuing the attack on impaired driving. Thank you.
Calgary Milliken, Edmonton Whitemud. Thank to the Minister, to the Solicitor General, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, in terms of the proportion of revenues being received from the sale of liquor products in the province, is not the amounts of dollars being spent to curtail impaired driving being reduced?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is. I mean, the same applies to the amount of the tax being collected and the amount of motor vehicle license being collected, and hopefully in the amount in respect to the overall oil revenues being collected. There's really no connection, Mr. Speaker, between the revenues generated from the Alberta Liquor Control Board and the amount spent on impaired driving.
Orders of the day. Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Member for Bow Valley.